Hi guys, how you doing? I just thought I'd do a quick weekly roundup video the first week back. Hopefully it's not too noisy out there. Some of the kids are arriving for the kids class. Great first week back. Obviously, there's a few new guys. That was your first week, so you did really good because obviously you were kind of thrown into the deep end. There were two very full-on sessions. Obviously, we did a lot of compound exercises, especially in session B, and we had a wee cardio section in there as well. So after the first cardio section of the week, I just decided to include one in the second session as well. And I just thought there's a couple of reasons for doing that. One, it just stems the flow of a busy class a little bit. Two, it gives you the chance to almost sample the slightly different style of training to the strength training that most of you guys do in session A and session B. So anyone that doesn't attend the circuits or the Hyrox class on a Friday night, for example, then it gives you a wee insight into a wee bit more about how those sort of classes work, albeit that was just a 12-minute section, but it gives you a bit of insight into what it's like. The emphasis, I guess, is you're doing sort of more sustained efforts where your heart rate is climbing consistently and then sort of like maintaining, which is the whole nature, I suppose, of aerobic work. And yeah, I think I also wanted to do it to highlight the point that I also want to try and make just now, which is that although there was a cardio section, inverted commas, I would like to think that anyone who did that hip thrust and split squat section properly, and what I mean by properly is lifted weights appropriate to your current strength levels for about 10 reps or so, 8 to 10 reps on the hip thrusts and about 6-ish reps to 8 reps on the split squats. If you lifted the weights appropriate to your strength levels, that was make that really difficult, your heart rate would have definitely been higher than the cardio section. Inverted commas, and it helps. I just wanted to point that out to help try and highlight to you this sort of like belief that strength training and cardio training are separate things. That they aren't really. Obviously, though, like what the fundamental difference, I suppose, with like sort of continual aerobic training or continuous aerobic training, when your sort of heart rate stays elevated at a certain level for a longer period of time, is that becomes a bit more specific to an event. So obviously, if you're training for a 10K or a Hyrox or whatever it might be, some sort of endurance event, then yes, you need to have specific training adaptations that allow you to build a bigger aerobic sort of engine. And in other words, like that's what training's all about. There's a rule of specificity, so you need to train that's going to mirror what your goals are. But the reason I'm bringing this up is from a health point of view. This is why strength training ticks the most boxes in the most efficient time frame, because you're working cardiovascularly when you're doing these sessions. And the hip thrust and split squats combination is an example of that. Your heart rates was going through the roof. I know someone told me the heart rate was about 175, and that would be about right. That makes sense to me, because your muscles are having to contract and work so hard on the biggest muscles in the body, the glutes and the legs generally, that requires that those contractions require blood and oxygen, which is going to come from your heart and lungs, obviously. So that is a really important point to remember. So for general health, like that's why strength training should be your first priority, because not only is you strengthening the muscles, the tendons, and the ligaments, and you're also you are training your cardiovascular system. So beyond that, yes, if you want to improve your actual aerobic capacity for the purpose of, for example, a performance, then yeah, it's important. And obviously as well, doing additional sessions like a third session or a fourth session with a bit more emphasis on that is going to be hugely beneficial as well, because if you've got a bigger general aerobic engine, it's going to allow you to work at a higher intensity as well when it comes to sort of weight training. So they're not separate entities. There's a bit of a sort of sliding scale, I suppose, or a transient thing where they all sort of merge. But at opposite ends of the spectrum, you've got just max strength work where your heart rate stays low, and then you've got just aerobic work where your heart rate just stays up really high, but the intensity is low because it's just a repeated effort over lots and lots of time or a long duration. So just wanted to highlight that to you. I'm going to break this video into 2 bits because there's another thing I wanted to talk about, but I can see that there's a few kids trying to get my attention over there. So see you soon.